Now that we're focusing on self-love this month, which I'm very excited and honored to work with you in, I want to remind you of the most important thing. This is something that I remind people the first time I work with them, and 30 years after, I'm still reminding them to choose to slow down. It is by far the number one active process and focus of self-love. When you choose to slow down, and you choose to commit to simplifying and relaxing in your day, making yourself a priority, making space around you, just quiet space, a priority. Number one, it's a critical thing to have and to do to allow all the healing work that we do to actually integrate and work. So many of us put our healing list in this long checklist and we're like, I meditate and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Where are we just stopping and allowing ourselves to relax so that all of the goodness that we're putting out into the world and for ourselves, that we get to receive that for ourselves? I want you to think self-love. Self-love means allowing ourselves to create space to allow healing to come into our own heart, our own spirit, our own body, our own mind, and our own experience. So much of our lives we've learned to live for other people. So we have this to-do list, and although we're doing it for ourselves, it's so fast-paced. It's this old frequency, if you will, that we're living from. In order to heal, we stop, we relax, and we reset. So when you think you're having time for yourself, are you truly making time for yourself? Or are you in the bathtub with your phone? Are you in line with your phone? Are you at the gym with your phone? Are you constantly sharing your focus and energy elsewhere? Think about it from this perspective. If you ask yourself, would I feel loved and supported based on how I'm caring for myself? Listen for the answer. Would I feel loved and cared for based on how I choose to make time for myself a priority? That's the best question. Would I feel loved and supported based on how I choose to make time for myself a priority? What's the answer? Is it a heck yeah, absolutely? Or is it a oh boy? If it's an oh boy, allow yourself to choose to not multitask so much so that you can actually make yourself a priority. And as you do that, you will almost immediately, if not immediately, feel the space of self-love that I'm sharing with you. You will feel stronger, you'll feel more confident, you'll feel almost giddy or happy as you choose to take time for yourself. Now, what do you do in that time? Why don't you do something that you love? Why don't you listen to something you love? Why don't you touch something that you love? Just allow yourself not to multitask. So for me, I love to light some incense or some essential oils, putting them in a diffuser. I love to light a candle. I love to close my eyes and sometimes put a music on and listen to the music and just breathe it in. And I imagine as I'm breathing it in, that I'm breathing in all of the goodness around me. And I exhale out. And I imagine that there's so much goodness around me, and I make space to allow myself to connect in and think about how beautiful that moment feels. And then I exhale out. As I'm exhaling out, every time I'm exhaling out, stress leaves the body. The feeling of having to do more, having to be more, leaves the body. I allow myself in that moment to just be present with whatever is going on. And as I'm present with that experience, by choosing to not multitask, choosing to make myself a focus, that is an act of self-love, and I will start to feel more love and room in love for love in myself. It will naturally happen. So it's very common where people will come and ask me, what can I do to love myself more? What can I do to love myself more? And the first thing is, maybe we don't do quite as much as we've been doing. Maybe we simplify our schedule. Maybe that's an act of self-love. Maybe it's choosing to say yes to myself first and then yes to people after. Yes to myself first. Do I feel nourished and supported by myself? Healing is about exploring. It's not about listening to me. I'll give you ideas. You take those ideas, you explore, you see how they feel for you, and that's dynamic healing. You feel it out for you. How does it feel? How I'm choosing to prioritize myself? Does it make me feel loved and supported? How is it that I'm feeling based on how I'm caring for myself? So for me, choosing to unplug from everything is a beautiful way to feel loved and supported inside by me making it a priority for myself. Why do I do that? Why do I let go of multitasking? Why do I turn my phone off? Because I want myself. I want to feel important. I want to feel nurtured. I want to feel honored. How much of my life I spent thinking that if I just did more outside for other people, I'd eventually feel that way. I would just give more to people and then I would feel loved and I would feel supported, or people would give me what it was that I wanted. And what I started realizing is I started feeling more and more empty inside and more confused inside because I couldn't understand. I was giving so much and sharing so much. But then I asked myself that question is, as I'm looking at myself, how loved and supported do I feel based on how I care for myself? And the answer was, I wasn't. The answer was I was actually starting to get really sad and really depressed because I felt like I was giving so much to people and I wasn't receiving a lot in the end. Why was that? Well, it's complicated and it's my own story, but a piece of it is by not taking time for myself, I learned by people not taking time for me, I learned not to take time for myself. So in my brain, the way it was is if I just gave more to some other people, maybe I would receive it back. And that's not necessarily how it works. And for me, it definitely didn't work that way. What it did do though, is when I learned that and I listened to that answer, something significant changed. What I realized is if I didn't have room to receive, how was I going to receive anything? And that was the most powerful shift for me, I think, pretty recently, as far as when I say recent, maybe the last 5 to 10 years, was, wow, if I don't have room to receive, how will I receive anything? How do I make room? What do I want? Well, I want to feel loved and nurtured and supported in my life. Well, how do I create that? Well, it's obviously a little more complicated this, but I start by simplifying my life. Instead of saying yes to everything outside, I check and I ask myself, based on my self-care, how am I feeling? Am I feeling loved and nurtured by myself, by me? And if the answer is no, that needs to become a priority and needed to become a priority for me to learn how to anchor myself in myself first. Then when someone asked for something, or I would notice something going on with someone, I would check with myself first to see if I actually had extra to give. I actually had to check with myself first, like, how am I doing in this form of connection to myself? Am I feeling loved? Am I feeling supported? Instead of just going on autopilot to help other people. This helped my chest, meaning my lungs. I had really bad asthma. It helped my lungs heal. It helped my digestive system heal. Because what happened is I didn't realize how overtaxed I was paying attention to so many people out of this traumatic response of wanting more love and wanting more from people. So what happened is I started giving a little bit to myself. And as I started giving more to myself, 2 magical things happened. All of a sudden, I wasn't so aware of what other people were needing. People were given the space to communicate what they needed instead of me sensing what they needed. That was a big one for me. The other piece that was a really big piece for me is as I started giving to myself, I wasn't grasping so much to support and help other people. I was really nurturing and honoring myself. So then people would start to say, wow, you seem so calm. You seem so happy. What's going on? What did you do? Are you in a new relationship? People would ask me all kinds of questions. And the truth is I chose to unplug from other people and the world for periods of time in my day and think of what could bring me joy today. What would bring me joy right now? What could I do that I would really enjoy? And asking myself that question, between you and I didn't even have the answer at first. I didn't know how to support myself. I could support other people like a champ, but I didn't know how to support myself. So this is a very, very powerful reminder to make sure you're taking quality time for yourself. Do things for you inside, and you'll have more than you started with to give to other people. So some people will hear this and say, oh, well, you're giving to yourself and now, you're becoming more selfish because you don't care so much about other people. I actually care more about other people than I ever have before. I actually notice a lot more about other people. But the cool thing is I'm not grasping for the energy, hoping to receive something. And until a certain time, I didn't even notice that was I was doing. But I started noticing because I started feeling resentful. And as I started feeling resentful, that led me to become more aware of what I needed to do to support my own healing process. To create room for me to receive love was a critical piece of my puzzle. To allow me to create a focus and giving myself permission to take time for myself, that was a critical piece of the puzzle. And as I did that, I would ask, what would I like to enjoy doing right now? And I didn't have any answers at first. So I would just be quiet and I would sit and I would just breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I would do breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I would just make quiet time for myself. And the more that I did that, 3-5 minutes a day, the more I would ask the question of what would I like to do today? What would bring me joy today? I was actually able to start getting answers. At first, that voice can be a little dormant, so be consistent, be patient, but I promise you'll be able to get answers if you make the space to receive insight. You remember to ask questions, you'll definitely get answers if you choose to listen. It can take time, but it will happen. Creating that quiet space is a very, very powerful act of self-love.